not covering this story here has got me thinking, you know what? You would have had another one of those I told you so moments. But then again, though,
entry. So we don't have just the governor of one state deciding where all newcomers go, but actually a coordinated plan nationwide for all of our cities and states to be a part of the solution. And we think those three things can actually help us be very successful. We just need those three things from Congress to be able to succeed.
Migrants who do stay in shelters are often put on a path toward a work permit. Reeves says these folks haven't received the same benefits.
They're not receiving any kind of official housing or immigration document support, which is incredibly necessary for them to be able to navigate the bureaucracy around these systems.
The city says its own offer comes with these benefits.
What do you qualify for? What do you not qualify for? What might be something that is a feasible path for you to success that is not staying on the streets of Denver? We try to compromise. We try to figure something out. You know, at the end of the day, what we do not want is families on the streets of Denver.
Now, before I talk about this situation in Denver with a bunch of migrants who have said, you know what, we're just not going to stay in the shelters anymore. We're going to go stay on private land, which, of course, they've gotten into trouble for. That right there will be coming up a little bit later on in the video. I want to talk about this particular part that was played before that. And, of course, that right there was the Denver mayor, who basically was saying that they wanted a much, much more coordinated effort when it come to handling the migrants. And of course, that coordinated effort also included sending these migrants to other cities. Now, I'm not saying that the other sanctuary cities in the country are not taking these people in or anything like that. You guys know my position. I think that everybody should just go back. And of course, a border wall should be built. But that's not the point of this video. You see, I've been saying for a while that these were the kind of things that would probably happen as a result of this. And of course, when these people start making demands, these people who quite frankly are not American citizens, these people who quite frankly are not legal, it makes you wonder where they may have actually gotten this mentality from.
Tonight about these government health care plans that you've proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
I chose to play that clip rather than the one of Joe Biden saying surge the border, because obviously this type of attitude has kind of led to this type of entitlement where it is that people can just make such demands even though they technically are not here. But going back to what the very, very beginning of this segment was, I want to say this. Chicago, we know about their migrant crisis. New York, we know about their migrant crisis. Boston, of course, they're dealing with migrants. And of course, these people did in fact vote for it. And of course, you've got all these other places, all these other cities that you would probably think you would hear more about in the news. I'm talking about LA, San Francisco, I'm talking about Minneapolis, some of the other sanctuary cities, some of the other sanctuary areas that you would think you would hear about. But I think that what the Denver mayor is really trying to say is you other big time cities should pick up the slack. I have a feeling I know when that right there is going to happen when other cities eventually get involved. And of course, it's really, truly not pretty. But still at the same time, though, the American citizen, the American itself, the American who lives right outside of Denver, quite frankly, should not have to endure this craziness. Now, before we get to the news story, I want to go back in time just a little bit more to show you exactly how this right here came about. Let me roll this.
Time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. As the city of Denver prepares to discharge migrant families from shelters next Monday, they're putting a new twist on that, saying, you can't stay here, you can't be homeless, and no, we might not have a home for you.
Next week, we will begin again the discharges for families.
In front of City Council, it's clear the plans are made and they're not changing.
If we were to have to sustain this level, it is unsustainable. From a staff perspective, from a space perspective, and certainly from a financial perspective.
Evan Dreyer from the mayor of Denver's office made it clear. Starting Monday, hundreds of migrant families living in shelters will begin being discharged one by one. 743 families in total, according to advocates.
We are doing everything that we possibly can to avoid encampments.
But the questions in this room don't always lead to answers. Like what happens when someone is kicked out of the shelter without a plan to get housing?
If people begin to form a camp, will they be asked to sort of move along without a destination? Will they be allowed to remain together? What happens then?
Yeah.
The city says they won't allow people to camp on the streets. outreach is the only answer so far.
Continuing to do really intensive outreach if encampment forms, working with people on the ground in an encampment to try to provide them with as many options.
Basically, what happened was that the city of Denver and the city council basically said, you know what, you ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here. That's basically what the hell happened, and they figured that they would leave it up to people who don't live in Denver directly, people who live in the outside areas just around the suburbs themselves to pick up the slack. That right there is, for the most part, I would say that this, quite frankly, the amount of respect that they have for the people who live outside the city, the people who don't vote for these policies, is actually quite disrespectful. This right here, by the way, will cause a negative reaction come election time, so make sure you guys pay very close attention to that. Not saying that Colorado is going to turn red or anything, but of course, what I'm saying is that people who typically tend to not get as involved politically, who typically tend to stay home, do eventually get activated, especially given the fact that these people who live in these areas own this property and they start seeing migrants showing up, just basically staying on their property. This right here will eventually become a problem. And of course, it is becoming an actual honest-to-God problem. So, what's happened recently? Let's roll this first part.
Migrants staying at an encampment, sending a list of demands to the desk of the mayor of Denver.
And if the demands are met, they say that they'll leave their encampment and move to a city-funded shelter. Oxford Rogelio Male is joining us live with both sides of this issue, all new at 9. Rogelio.
Yeah, Eric and Jeremy, it's kind of a tug of war between both sides. On one side, you've got the migrants who say the city reneged on a deal they made with them. On the other side, you got the city lobbying these migrants to get off the streets and into shelters, telling us tonight these benefits are available to them as long as they're staying in those city-funded shelters.
The camp as a collective came up with a list of demands.
That came after a petition by city officials for migrants to move from this encampment near train tracks under a bridge to indoor
Really quick,
shelters.
before I respond to that, there's this thing about the migrants and water that's going to be coming up here a little bit later on the video. How it is that a lot of people are upset about the fact that the city of Denver can just, how do I say this, just continue to give out free showers like crazy. I want to go ahead and say this really quick. To the migrants who are making these ridiculous demands. I did a segment a while back about New York and how it was that in a lot of these facilities, they don't get to shower at all. They still are not being able to shower at all. And of course, we're going to the summer months. Same thing in Chicago. So I would consider the migrants who are in Denver to be quite literally fortunate, very, very lucky that the city of Denver would even consider giving you a shower. Just saying. By the way, not being able to shower like that there. And of course, you've also got these migrants who, of course, get robbed by other migrants, by other people. I can honestly feel these people's pain, but still at the same time, though, you're probably not in a position to make any demands. So the city of Denver, from what you guys saw, obviously wanted to get these people off the streets. Say, look, you can't sleep in the streets. You can't sit in the streets. You voted for these policies. You voted to put these people in. And of course, now the migrants that are there obviously rebelling, making all kinds of ridiculous demands, which of course will come up a little bit later on in the video because once again, we're not actually done with this and it does require an update to the video itself because obviously some new things have came out since then, but let's keep watching.
Came up with a list of demands.
That came after a petition by city officials for migrants to move from this encampment near train tracks under a bridge to indoor shelters funded by the city.
This morning, they sent buses to take people over without presenting that document and without having any kind of signature for accountability.
That's what migrant advocate V. Reeves says the city responded with instead of meeting the migrants' demands.
We've been offering time and shelter, basically just trying to get families to leave that camp and come inside.
John Ewing with Denver Human Services says shelter comes with its perks, namely getting out of these conditions outdoors.
Which comes with, 3 square meals a day. You can cook your own if you'd like to.
That is one of the main demands by these migrants who have had their grievances in the past about the food provided by the city.
There have been so many complaints about the food being spoiled or not being enough and malnutrition amongst children.
Now, I do want to tell you this right quick before we get to the actual update of this, the updated version, because obviously there's going to be a bit of an update to what happened in this situation here. That's going to be coming up a little bit later on. The blonde-headed girl and the guy that you saw talking about trying to compromise and telling these people that they could, hey, look, you can cook your own meals. They will be coming back up because obviously they're in the updated section, which is going to be coming up in a second. The point is this right here. These migrants, in my opinion, really have no right to negotiate anything, okay? They took the government credit cards that, quite frankly, they were given, and they use it to set up a tent shelter outside the area, which of course happened to be on private property. And obviously the owners of said private property are not doing very well. Of course, it doesn't actually look that way because it's actually right outside town, but it's extending to private property. The landowners have got to use that land for all kinds of other reasons, maybe grow crops, whatever. And of course, the people are beginning to get pissed off about this. But then again, at the same time, though, we're still waiting on the actual news report for that right there to actually drop, because you're going to get the reaction from the people because they're probably going to collect over time. But still, the point is this right here. It basically is the equivalency of stealing private property when you put these camp setups out there. And of course, while you're out there, you're also at the exact same time making ridiculous demands when the federal government is quite frankly already giving you that which you already want. And of course, the city of Denver, they made the situation a lot worse by saying we want them off the streets, we want them back inside the shelters. And of course, the migrants got pissed off. Like I said, they're getting a little bit uppity about the situation. And as you guys can see, they're obviously raiding people's land, people's property that quite frankly does not belong to them. That right there being the migrants, meaning that they're practically trying to recolonialize already colonialized land. Just saying. Of course, there would in fact be an update to this story. Now, before I give you the update to this story, this video right here is going to end with me telling you what the overall end-game goal is of the actual, how do I say, the people in charge, the mayors, because at some point in time, you're probably going to see them get together on this right here, because they're not going to have a daggone choice, because they're obviously losing this war. They're losing this fight. They know that they are. And obviously the mayor of Denver, while it is that he appears to be the one that's been giving the migrants the most amount of stuff that quite frankly they should be appreciative of, he's also the one who's basically, I think, even though it's obviously a smaller city, a smaller town, I think he's taking a lot more heat from the migrants, as I'll explain a little bit later on in this video. But let's see exactly what's happened here recently.
Developing right now, the city of Denver announced that 4 shelters are being shut down for immigrants. And now city officials are apparently asking rental property owners to rent directly to immigrants.
Yeah, certainly a controversial suggestion. Fox 31's Lisa D'Souza joins us now. They're asking owners to cap rent prices as well at about $2,000 a month. She joins us live with more on this request from the city. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, that is the latest from city officials that we have heard at this point. So we know just 2 months ago, it's estimated there were about 4,500 people staying in those migrant shelters. Now that number is believed to be less than 2,000. So a pretty big difference here in just a few months. Let's get into some of the latest details here. We spoke with Denver's Department of Housing about a recent email that actually went out to some rental property owners in Denver, specifically asking them to consider renting to immigrants. Several nonprofits helping with housing efforts as well. They say the city, in all, they estimate about 1,300 people have gotten permits just in the past 2 weeks, further boosting their efforts.
We put out a feeler to all the landlords we have connections with and basically said, listen, we're going to have some newcomers who are going to need housing.
And we know at this point that the number of people staying in those migrant shelters is believed to be at a 6-month low. Of course, we're going to continue following this because a lot more questions here as this story continues to develop. For now, we're live in the Denver Metro. Lisa D'Souza, Fox 31.
That story right there that you guys just saw, all 1 minute and 32 seconds. That story right there is an update to the previous story that I've been showing you guys. It got updated literally a few hours later. It was on, basically with some additional information. Now, I've been saying this entire video that this private land is being getting stolen. And of course, private land has been getting stolen because obviously these people are camping on private land. However, I left out the part about the rental properties, and here's the reason why. You see, the city of Denver is saying, you know what? We got all these migrants. Why not get these rental property owners? Why not get these people to take these people in and obviously, I don't know, have these migrants pay rent? Even if it's like just a couple of $100 a month or whatever, because these debit cards they've been getting are roughly right around $1,000 to $2,000 or $3,000. I'm not going to tell you guys where I know about this, but there's a certain group out there that when they get together, they stay together as a family. And what they decide to do is they decide to take all the paychecks, all the earnings that they have, and they tend to put it together. You're seeing that group right now. I have to say it that way because of YouTube's algorithm. I can't tell you about personal experiences growing up. But this is kind of what one particular class does. Just saying. Now, the Biden administration is, quite frankly, paying these people a bunch of money. And they're giving them this money while they're here illegally. And they act like they have some rights, which, by the way, they really truly don't have that many rights when you think about it. Even though some people will say that they do, they really don't because they're not American citizens. But the thing is this right here. The city of Denver said, you know what, here's what we could do. We could just kind of convince these rental property owners to get these people to pay rent. And of course, the rental property owners would in fact be backed by the city of Denver. What happened was that these migrants said, no. I want my free ride to the United States. I want my free citizenship. And oh yeah, I also want my money too. These migrants are making demands while also at the exact same time freeloading on the American taxpayer because they're not planning on paying any rent at all. That right there is the real reason why it is that the migrants have said, you know what, we're going to set up these campsites out here on this land here. And of course, the property owners out there are beginning to get a little bit pissed off about the situation. This right here is what they're doing. You gave them this, you gave them that, and of course, you also gave them the money, of course, the debit cards, which, by the way, on the behest of the taxpayer, and these people obviously don't want to spend any more money than they have to. Now, I don't blame them for trying to save the cash, but holy crap, that right there is what they're doing. They're stealing. And when the city of Denver asked them to pay some rent per month, they obviously get pissed off and then begin to make some demands. Victimhood Olympics is what the hell this is. Let's continue.
This one off 39th Avenue in Central Park.
Well, it comes as another migrant camp gave the city a list of their demands in exchange for moving off the streets and into a shelter. Let's get to Greg Perez live in Denver this morning with the story here. Greg.
Good morning, Kirk and Ashley. Yes, this encampment behind me, the migrant encampment that you see behind me in Central Park, they have made a list of demands, about 13 of them. That was made just a couple of days ago. Of course, they've been living here for the past couple of weeks or so, and on top of that, the group says that if their demands are met, they will voluntarily stay in city-funded shelters and leave their encampment where families, including young children, still live in tents. So it's kind of been a tug of war between the two sides. The migrants have been lobbied by Denver Human Services to get off the street and into shelters, an offer that remains, according to city officials. Meanwhile, the migrants say the city withdrew the deal, while the city maintains it will continue to offer services to migrants that choose shelter over encampments. The list of demands from the migrants includes better food, as they have had grievances about the food provided by the city.
So basically what the hell it boils down to is I'm getting all this free stuff from the taxpayer, so what I'm going to do is go out there and set up an encampment, stay out here on this land and on this property until they choose to make changes to their food menu, which, by the way, is free and being paid for by the taxpayer, while at the exact same time getting these debit cards. It's basically just another great big giant attempt at freeloading is what the hell it is. I mean, the nerve of these people, but also at the same time, though, these people who live in this area who voted for this crap obviously did this crap to themselves. There is one more news report that, quite frankly, I do want to toss out there because, once again, there was obviously an update to the previous story.
They're not receiving any kind of official housing or immigration document support, which is incredibly necessary for them to be able to navigate the bureaucracy around these systems.
We try to compromise. We try to figure something out. You know, at the end of the day, what we do not want.
Without time limits and can be accessed whenever needed. Medical professional visits that will happen regularly, and referrals for specialty care will be made as needed too. And all will receive the same housing support that has been offered to others. They cannot kick people out in 30 days without something stable established. So all in all, the migrants presented around 13 demands. Now, we have heard from the city, as you heard in the sound on tape just there, they really just do not want people in tents or kids in camps. So that's their goal. We're waiting to see on what the migrants say. On top of all of that, again, we still have the city that's going to be sweeping this encampment behind me starting
Before
today.
I fully respond to the last demands that are being made or the full list of demands, let's go back to that previous clip.
Tonight about these government health care plans that you've proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Free health care, be able to take a shower wherever the hell we want, all that type of stuff there too. Which, by the way, the taxpayer who lives in the city of Denver is paying for. But it's not just the taxpayer who lives in the city of Denver. It's the suburban areas. It's the areas within the Denver vicinity in the county, because county taxes are obviously going to be allocated to this as well. These migrants, obviously, are taking advantage of this situation so that way they can freeload and hold the cash. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, if the federal government's going to make them citizens at some point in time, which, by the way, they should not be because they're here illegally, then obviously they're going to need that money to start a home. They shouldn't be here, okay? They shouldn't be here. Now you guys see the other aspects, the other problems that come with letting a bunch of people in. They get to the point to where they think that, quite frankly, they can just do whatever. This is probably the biggest reason why it is that the mayor of Denver is screaming and hollering for other blue cities to get involved, which, by the way, they're showing you their hypocrisy by not getting involved because obviously these very, very big blue cities, they do what? They love to virtue signal, they love to run their mouth, but they don't actually do anything. Case in point, when Xi Jinping came to the United States, he went to California. If you are from California or you've been paying attention to California, which many people have kind of been paying attention to California for a long time, one of the biggest reasons why it is that I think that if they put Gavin Newsom on the ballot, or if they even try to replace Joe Biden with Gavin Newsom would lose in a massive landslide because the American people have already been conditioned to see exactly what the hell's been going on in California. It doesn't matter what the media outlet is. I mean, it's funny how it was that MSNBC, even they will criticize Gavin Newsom and what the hell is going on in California. That was until recently, but obviously their viewers still remember. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because California, as most people know, is an absolute crap hole, and it's bringing the rest of the country down with it. The homeless problem is obviously an issue, but when a foreign dignitary was coming over here, President Xi, of course, Gavin Newsom chose to clean up the city of San Francisco, clean up the homeless and all that type of stuff there. You see, they don't care about the people who actually live in that area. Now, maybe it's possible that the mayor of Denver is just a good old-fashioned, regular blue dog Democrat at heart, and maybe he really and truly does care. It's one of the things that, quite frankly, I need to work on is make a distinction between Democrats, liberals, and far-left radicals. Maybe the mayor of Denver is. I really and truly don't know. Maybe I should research the guy a little bit more, but obviously he's trying to tell other cities, y'all need to get involved in this crap because obviously you're not. Now, I know somebody's probably going to say, well, New York is flooded, Chicago is flooded, and that right there is true. I'm talking about San Francisco, LA. I'm talking about Minneapolis. I'm talking about the other very, very big blue cities who virtue signal about this crap all the time. The overall end-game goal was to send these people to all these cities, and obviously they're not doing this because obviously, as you guys can see, they're dealing with all kinds of ridiculous demands from these migrants, which, by the way, the Democrats on the debate stage in 2020, 2019, and of course the current administration promised them completely unrealistic demands. I mean, think about this really quick. You are a person sitting at home paying your bills, and of course you've got maybe you're on Obamacare, I don't know, but you got to pay this very, very high, ridiculous amount of money for medical insurance. I obviously don't really have to worry about that because I've got the VA, but then again, the VA's got its issues too. Can't really complain too much about them because obviously there's going to be a procedure that's probably going to be done this summer on me, and I kind of don't want to jinx it. But still at the same time, though, the person at home right now who's got to take care of 3 or 4 kids or whatever, who's got to pay the extremely high price against, and by the way, the inflation rate is set to go back up because we're edging towards 4%. And of course, we've got Biden claiming that he had the lowest inflation. He's claiming that he had the highest inflation rate he's brought. It's a bunch of crap. It's just BS. The point is this right here. People can't afford this crap. And people, quite frankly, can't afford this to pay the taxpayer. The taxpayer can't afford to take care of all these people who are just being brought over to be Biden's brand new voters. Even though at some point in time, as I mentioned in the one-party rule video, they may just eventually become Republican voters at some point in time because the modern left does not exactly jive with these people. But still at the same time, though, you've still got to shell out a lot of money to these people. It's still obviously a problem that, quite frankly, we can't take care of. One of the biggest reasons why is that we need a wall. The point is this right here. This right here is a situation that, quite frankly, a lot of people should have seen. I kind of feel bad about not pointing this out, but in cities like, say, New York and Chicago, you can't really put them out anywhere as far as, like, actual areas, like rural areas and encampments they can go to. But, of course, the city of Denver, being a sanctuary city, the way it is, they're obviously feeling the brunt of this. And, obviously, they showed absolutely no consideration to the fellow taxpayers that they had who live directly outside the city, who still help pay the city of Denver's taxes. If you are a taxpayer right now and you've got to cover all this crap and then you turn right back around afterwards and you find out that the politicians are trying to give these people, or they're running on a platform that offers people that, quite frankly, should not be here free health care, but yet they're not offering you free health care. And I'm opposed to free health care, by the way. You really and truly should be angry, fed up as hell. Now, This right here is the only video I have scheduled for Friday. Please tell me what you think in the comment section. This weekend, I'm going to try to put out 3 total videos, or maybe 2. I'm not sure. The video that I was going to put out on why nobody wants to join is probably going to come out on Monday. Seeing how it is that Monday is kind of the day that I can't really do anything inside the apartment as far as work is concerned until after 8 o'clock at night because of what happens over here. But just give you guys a bit of a heads up. And the 2 videos that would come out, which I may just release both of them on Saturday, are going to kind of be like a 1 to 2-parter. I may release one tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. You guys know me. I'm kind of flighty. But we're going to be going back to the community tab. And as I've said before, the idea now is to try to put out throughout the rest of this year, unless something is absolutely breaking, just one very, very well edited video per day. So that way you guys can kind of catch up. And of course, we're going in the video essay territory anyway, so that would mean that less videos would come out anyways. But still, at the same time, though, please tell what you think in the comment section. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. Please sign up in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.